Single dad human vet quit dating, until two cat alien women brought 5 kids in a perfect match file. After years of dating disasters and the emotional exhaustion that came with being a single parent, he had made a firm decision. He would focus on his daughter, his work as a veterinarian, and the simple routines that gave him comfort. The bustling colony around him seemed chaotic at times, but his home and clinic were his sanctuaries. There was peace in knowing exactly what each day would bring, until the day everything changed. Ethan had built a modest veterinary clinic on the outskirts of a thriving interstellar colony. It was the kind of place where human and alien species crossed paths daily, bringing with them ailments and injuries that no automated machine could treat. He loved his work for its unpredictability, and for the way it allowed him to connect deeply with creatures who could not speak in words. From a small telepathic rodent on a distant moon to a 6-legged, bright-winged bird-like creature from the nearby forest, Ethan had seen it all. His daughter, Lily, was a bright and curious 8-year-old who shared her father's love for creatures. She had grown up learning the names and habits of animals most humans would have considered strange, and her fascination with the universe's wonders often reminded Ethan of the childlike wonder he had once held. Lily had never questioned why her father remained single. She had her own idea of what family could be, and that was enough for her. One evening, after a long day treating a family of injured sky serpents, Ethan was closing the clinic when his personal communicator chimed. The device, sleek and compact, had always been reliable, but tonight it displayed something unusual, a message from an unknown source. The header simply read, "Proposal, perfect match file, immediate attention required." Ethan frowned. He was not in the mood for dating or matchmaking programs. He had long ago deleted most of the dating apps on his communicator and had ignored most attempts by colleagues to set him up with anyone. Curiosity, however, is a tricky thing, and the title alone pulled him in. He tapped the message and opened a digital file. The message was formal, almost ceremonial in tone. It introduced 2 alien women, Nyla and Sierra, both feline-like beings from the planet Felinara. They were described as caretakers of 5 children who required assistance. But what caught Ethan's attention most was the claim that he was the perfect match to help this unique family thrive. Images accompanied the text, showing 5 children, some human, some obviously mixed with alien traits. One had large, luminous eyes, another had tiny telepathic sensors along the forehead, while a third seemed capable of shifting its skin colors subtly. Ethan leaned back, rubbing his temples. He had no idea what this meant or why he had been selected. "This has to be a mistake," he muttered to himself. But even as he considered ignoring it, he felt a tug of curiosity, the kind that always followed unusual opportunities. Lily, standing nearby, had seen the images over his shoulder and gasped. "Dad, look!" she exclaimed. "They look amazing," Ethan sighed. He was not eager to dive into chaos, but he had learned over the years that curiosity could not easily be ignored, especially when it came from Lily. "Maybe," he said cautiously, "but this could be dangerous. We don't know these people." The next morning, a sleek spacecraft landed quietly outside their home. Ethan and Lily watched in disbelief as 2 elegant feline women emerged. They were graceful, their movements fluid and precise, their eyes glowing faintly in the sunlight. They carried themselves with a mix of dignity and warmth, and their expressions were calm yet filled with a quiet determination. Nyla stepped forward first, her tail curling thoughtfully behind her. "Dr. Ethan Kane?" she asked, her voice melodic but firm. "That's me," Ethan said cautiously. "And you are?" "I am Nyla, and this is Sierra," she said, gesturing to the other feline woman. "We have come because we require your help. Our children need a guardian and a mentor. We believe you are the perfect match for our family." Ethan's mind spun. "I don't understand. Why me?" Sierra stepped forward this time. "Our species uses a compatibility program to identify individuals who are not only capable of providing care, but who can also guide, protect, and nurture our children. The file you received explained our reasoning. You have demonstrated patience, intelligence, and emotional depth, which are exactly the traits needed to assist us." Ethan shook his head, feeling overwhelmed. 5 children and 2 adults, and you want me to help?" "Yes," Nyla replied simply. "We ask only that you spend time with them, understand them, and help them grow." Lily, unable to contain her excitement, ran forward. "Can we meet them, Dad, please?" Ethan hesitated. He was no stranger to unusual situations, but this was unlike anything he had faced before. Still, seeing Lily's wide eyes and eager smile, he felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps this was more than just a strange invitation. Perhaps it was a chance for something meaningful. With a deep breath, Ethan agreed. The spacecraft doors opened fully and 5 children emerged. Each had a unique presence, displaying a combination of innocence, curiosity, and intelligence. The oldest, Tico, moved quietly, observing Ethan with eyes that seemed to see more than they should. Myra, the smallest, peeked around the corner, her tiny telepathic sensors flickering as she sensed the emotions in the room. Juno, energetic and curious, immediately began exploring the surroundings, asking questions about everything. Lanny, calm and empathetic, approached Ethan and placed a small hand on his arm, as if gauging his character. Rick, the youngest and most protective, hovered close to the others, watching every movement carefully. Ethan's initial anxiety gave way to fascination. These children were unlike any he had encountered. Their differences were obvious, but so were their potential and intelligence. He realized quickly that his experience as a veterinarian, combined with his patience and compassion, would be critical in helping them adapt to this new environment. Over the next few hours, Ethan learned more about each child. Tico had a talent for camouflage and observation, often noticing details that others missed. Myra could sense emotions and thoughts in subtle ways, a gift that could be overwhelming if not guided properly. Juno was inventive and endlessly curious, constantly pushing boundaries to see how things worked. Lanny seemed to understand the feelings of everyone around her, often stepping in to calm conflicts. Rick, despite his small size, had a fierce sense of loyalty and responsibility, ensuring the younger children remained safe. Nyla and Sierra explained that the perfect match file was not merely about compatibility in the traditional sense. It was a sophisticated program designed to measure the ability to nurture, teach, and provide stability in a family that blended species and abilities. Ethan listened carefully, still skeptical, but he could not ignore the logic. Each child's unique abilities required guidance, structure, and understanding, something he was more than capable of providing. By the evening, Ethan was exhausted but strangely exhilarated. He had spent hours interacting with the children, learning their quirks, and beginning to understand their needs. Lily had already bonded with them, laughing as Tico demonstrated a camouflage trick, and Myra quietly projected a gentle wave of empathy that made everyone feel calm. Ethan sat on the edge of the couch, watching the children play and the 2 women coordinate their efforts. He felt a mix of fear and hope. This life, so different from the quiet routines he had known, promised challenges beyond anything he had imagined, but also rewards that were equally profound. As night fell, Ethan reflected on the day. He had spent years avoiding change, believing he was protecting himself and Lily from the complications of love and responsibility. Now, he realized that perhaps avoidance had also kept him from discovering a deeper purpose. These children and the 2 remarkable women who guided them had arrived unannounced, demanding attention, care, and connection. And somehow, in a way he could not yet fully understand, he felt ready to rise to the occasion. When Lily climbed onto his lap, her eyes bright with excitement, Ethan allowed himself a small smile. "Looks like our quiet life is over," he said softly. Lily giggled. "I like it already." Ethan laughed quietly, feeling the tension of the day lift slightly. He still did not know what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, he felt a spark of something he had thought was lost. Hope, connection, and the possibility of family in a form he had never imagined. He glanced toward the children as they settled in for the night, the 2 alien women watching with careful approval. His heart swelled with a strange but comforting certainty. This was not a mistake. Somehow, the universe had brought them all together. And for the first time in years, Ethan Kane felt that perhaps life's unpredictable paths could lead to extraordinary things. The soft hum of the spacecraft engines outside reminded him that tomorrow would bring new challenges, adventures, and lessons. And yet, for tonight, he allowed himself to simply be present, surrounded by laughter, warmth, and the unspoken promise of an extraordinary family yet to come. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, letting the day's chaos and wonder settle into his mind. He had no idea how the next days would unfold, but deep down, he knew this was just the beginning. The children had arrived, and with them a world of possibilities, ones that he was ready at last to explore. Life with 5 alien children was far more chaotic than Ethan had anticipated. Even though the day they arrived had been overwhelming, nothing could have prepared him for the reality of sharing his home with beings so intelligent, energetic, and unpredictable. Each morning began with the clang of alien alarms, not clocks, and the soft hum of the Felinara spacecraft settled into their yard. Lily, ever curious, had embraced her new siblings instantly, rushing to help with breakfast and chores, while Ethan tried to maintain some semblance of order. The first real challenge came when feeding time started. Unlike humans, the children's diets were varied and specific. Tico required a mix of nutrient-rich leaves from Felinara's forests combined with proteins only found on nearby moons. Myra's small size meant that her meals had to be carefully balanced, enriched with compounds that helped regulate her telepathic abilities. Juno's endless curiosity extended to food. He would inspect every item, rearrange it, and sometimes attempt to combine flavors in ways Ethan could barely imagine. Lanny, calm and observant, quietly guided the younger children, while Rick, ever protective, patrolled the kitchen to ensure no one took too much or too little. Ethan soon realized that feeding alone could take an entire morning. Recipes and procedures were written in the perfect match file, but interpreting them took trial and error. At first, he burned the leaves for Tico, and Myra's portion ended up cold. Juno sneezed at a new ingredient he declared unacceptable, and Rick's protective scowl made it clear he expected Ethan to do better. Lanny, sensing Ethan's frustration, simply placed a hand on his arm and smiled gently, silently reminding him to breathe. By mid-morning, the real adventure began: school. The children had been learning multiple disciplines even before arriving at Ethan's home. They studied Felinara language, basic mathematics that defied human conventions, alien history, and practical skills such as navigating low-gravity zones and minor engineering. Ethan had expected tutoring to be straightforward, but these children challenged him at every step. "Dad, that number isn't linear," Juno announced, pointing to a series of floating symbols in the air projected by a small holopad. "You're assuming they progress the way human numbers do, but they actually fold back on themselves." Ethan paused, scratching his head. "Fold back." "What do you mean?" Juno grinned. "Watch!" He manipulated the symbols with a flick of his wrist, and they rearranged themselves in a loop, creating a pattern that seemed impossible at first. Ethan felt both amazement and a hint of panic. He was not used to children teaching him advanced alien mathematics, and yet he had to keep up. Meanwhile, Myra floated beside him, her small telepathic sensors flickering. Ethan had learned to respect her abilities. She often whispered emotions into his mind, subtle hints of what the others were thinking. It was strange, almost magical, and sometimes unnerving. Tico watched silently, her camouflage shifting slightly as she blended with the walls, observing Ethan's reactions like a teacher would a student. Rick hovered protectively near Myra, and Lanny quietly encouraged everyone to focus, mediating disputes before they could escalate. By afternoon, Ethan realized that maintaining discipline required creativity. Simple commands like "sit still" or "pay attention" had no effect. He had to think like a strategist, blending logic, empathy, and humor. At first, he felt exhausted, but slowly he began to see the children's strengths. Tico's observational skills made her an excellent scout. Myra's telepathy allowed her to sense unspoken problems before they erupted. Juno's inventiveness brought new solutions to mundane challenges. Lanny's empathy kept conflicts from spiraling, and Rick's protectiveness ensured safety for everyone. It was during one particularly challenging afternoon that Ethan understood the depth of their potential. The children had been assigned a group project to design a shelter suitable for both human and Felinara weather conditions. Ethan had expected it to be simple, a basic structure reinforced with materials available locally. Instead, the children created an intricate design incorporating camouflage features, emergency escape hatches, self-regulating temperature systems, and even small compartments for injured animals. Ethan watched in awe as the structure came together. Juno engineered mechanical parts. Tico suggested the best ways to hide the shelter. Lanny coordinated the group. Myra fine-tuned communication between the children using subtle telepathic cues, and Rick oversaw the construction, correcting mistakes before they could become dangerous. It was a symphony of intelligence and cooperation, and Ethan realized that no single human could have achieved this alone. After the project, the children gathered around Ethan, eyes shining with pride. "You saw it, Dad," Lanny said softly. "We can do anything if we work together." Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth he had not felt in years. "Yes, you can," he said, "and you have me to help when you need it." Evenings were quieter but no less interesting. Ethan would prepare dinner while Nyla and Sierra assisted, demonstrating techniques that combined Felinara traditions with practical human methods. The children helped where they could, though their energy often turned cooking into a playful chaos. Lily, of course, was right in the middle, laughing at Tico's camouflage tricks, Myra's telepathic giggles, and Juno's constant experiments with alien spices. Once meals were finished, stories and lessons began. The children were naturally curious about the universe, asking questions that required Ethan to think deeply and creatively. They asked about stars, black holes, alien cultures, and even the philosophical differences between species. Ethan discovered that teaching them was as much about learning from them as it was about instructing. Every question challenged his understanding and expanded his knowledge. One night, as they all sat under the stars, Myra whispered to Ethan, "You're really good at understanding us, even though you're human." Ethan chuckled softly. "I'm learning from you all, too." Rick frowned slightly. "I still think you need to work on keeping Tico from scaring people with her camouflage tricks," he said. Ethan laughed, realizing how much he had become involved in the children's daily lives and quirks. As the days passed, Ethan noticed subtle changes in himself. He felt more patient, more adaptable, and more creative. His life, once predictable and quiet, was now filled with energy, problem-solving, and unexpected joys. Each day brought new lessons in teamwork, empathy, and understanding. He realized that this family was shaping him just as much as he was shaping them. One afternoon, the colony faced a small emergency that tested everything Ethan had learned. A group of alien creatures that Tico and Juno had been studying escaped from a nearby enclosure, causing panic. The animals were frightened, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. Ethan's instincts as a veterinarian kicked in immediately. He coordinated the children, assigning roles based on their strengths. Tico and Rick to guide and contain the creatures, Juno to craft temporary barriers, Lanny to calm the frightened animals, and Myra to monitor the creatures' stress levels telepathically. Working together, they managed to corral the animals safely, preventing injury and chaos. Nyla and Sierra observed quietly, impressed by how well Ethan had adapted to the children's abilities and the unique challenges they faced. Ethan, for his part, felt a surge of pride and satisfaction. This was not just about caring for children. It was about forming a team, a family, and a community that relied on trust, understanding, and collaboration. That evening, after the excitement had settled, Ethan reflected on the events. Life with these children was unpredictable, exhausting, and at times overwhelming. But it was also filled with laughter, learning, and growth. He understood that the perfect match file had been right. Not only was he compatible with the children, but he also had the skills, patience, and heart required to guide and support them. As Lily snuggled against him, whispering about the adventures they had shared, Ethan realized that his quiet, predictable life had been a preparation for this moment. He had learned patience, resilience, and problem-solving through years of solo parenting and veterinary work. Those experiences, which he had once thought were mundane or lonely, had equipped him to step into a far more complex and rewarding role. That night, the house was filled with the soft sounds of alien dreams and human contentment. Ethan sat quietly, listening to the rhythm of their breathing, the faint hum of Felinara technology, and the distant glow of colony lights. He felt a sense of purpose that he had not known before. The children, Nyla, Sierra, and Lily, were not just part of his life. They were the reason his life had taken on new meaning. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, thinking about the journey ahead. There would be challenges, of course. Managing 5 intelligent, energetic children, each with unique abilities and needs, was no small task. There would be misunderstandings, mistakes, and learning curves, but he felt ready, more ready than he had felt in years. He had a family that needed him, a team that trusted him, and a life that promised adventure and growth beyond anything he had imagined. He smiled softly, knowing that this was just the beginning. The days ahead would be filled with chaos, learning, laughter, and discovery. And Ethan Kane, the single human veterinarian who had once quit dating and resigned himself to quiet routines, had found a family that would challenge him, inspire him, and fill his life with meaning in ways he could never have predicted. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of excitement about tomorrow. With these children, Lily, and the two extraordinary alien women, every day promised something new. And for Ethan, that promise was more valuable than anything he had ever known. Life with 5 alien children continued to challenge Ethan Kane in ways he could never have imagined. He had grown accustomed to their energy, their unusual habits, and the unpredictable chaos that now defined his home. Still, he had not expected the events of the following week, which would test not only his patience, but also his problem-solving skills, his courage, and his ability to lead a team under pressure. It began with a soft alert from the colony's environmental monitoring system. Ethan had just returned from a routine checkup on one of the injured Felinara creatures in his clinic when the alert flashed on his communicator. A mysterious illness was spreading among the local wildlife. Animals were acting strangely, losing coordination and displaying symptoms that had never been recorded before. If the illness continued unchecked, it could devastate the ecosystem, endanger the children's safety, and disrupt the balance of the colony itself. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. As a veterinarian, he was trained to respond to emergencies, but this situation was unlike any he had faced. These were not ordinary animals, and the illness was spreading too quickly for conventional treatment. He realized immediately that he would need help, and that help had to be coordinated carefully. He gathered the children in the living room, explaining the situation as simply as possible. "The animals are sick," he said. "We need to help them, or the problem will get worse. I need your cooperation, and I need you to use your special abilities carefully." The children listened intently, their eyes wide with concern. Tico's camouflage shimmered faintly as she crouched, ready to observe the surroundings without being noticed. Myra's sensors twitched as she focused on the emotions and stress levels of both humans and animals. Juno's mind raced with possible tools and solutions, while Lanny calmly assessed everyone's emotional state, making sure fear or panic did not take hold. Rick stood close to the others, protective and vigilant, ready to intervene if needed. Lily, though human, was eager to contribute, absorbing instructions quickly and assisting wherever she could. Ethan quickly assigned tasks. Tico would scout the forests and locate affected animals. Myra would monitor their health and communicate subtle changes telepathically. Juno would create temporary containment devices and treatments using available materials. Lanny would calm and comfort the frightened creatures. Rick would ensure safety and guide the younger children during their work. Ethan himself would oversee the operation, treat injured animals directly, and coordinate the group's efforts. The first day was grueling. Ethan and the children trekked through dense forests, locating sick animals while avoiding hazards they had not encountered before. Tico's camouflage allowed her to observe without disturbing the creatures, noting subtle symptoms and reporting back silently through hand signals and small gestures. Myra projected a calm, soothing energy that helped the animals remain manageable during treatment, while Juno's inventive devices allowed Ethan to administer temporary remedies. Lanny's empathy proved crucial. Several of the animals were frightened, resisting treatment, and her presence allowed Ethan to approach them without causing panic. Rick stayed close to Tico and Myra, guiding them and ensuring no one strayed too far or encountered danger. Lily helped in small but meaningful ways, holding equipment, comforting frightened animals, and learning quickly from Ethan's guidance. By the end of the first day, they had treated dozens of animals, but the illness continued to spread. Ethan realized they needed a more permanent solution, a way to stop the outbreak entirely. He pored over data from previous veterinary studies, scanning records of alien diseases and environmental patterns, but nothing matched this illness exactly. He understood that conventional methods would not suffice. During the next morning's briefing, Ethan turned to the children. "We're going to need a new plan," he said. "This illness isn't like anything I've seen before. We'll have to combine what we know with what you can do. Together we might find a cure." Juno's eyes lit up. I can try designing a device that can detect the illness in the air and neutralize it. We can use natural compounds and simple chemical reactions to create a counteragent. Tico nodded. I can continue to scout and monitor animals. We'll need to track how the illness spreads. Myra concentrated, projecting thoughts of calm and focus, but also relaying subtle warnings to Ethan about which animals were most affected and where the spread was fastest. Lanny reminded everyone to stay calm and organized, preventing fear or panic from disrupting their efforts. Rick, as always, stayed vigilant, ensuring that everyone moved safely through the forests and the colony's outskirts. Ethan coordinated the efforts, providing guidance, treating animals directly, and helping Juno construct the device. He marveled at how quickly the children had adapted to working together, using their unique abilities to achieve a common goal. In some ways, he realized, the perfect match file had been accurate. They had not chosen him merely because of compatibility. They had chosen him because he could lead, coordinate, and inspire the children to work together in ways that ensured success. As the day progressed, they encountered increasingly difficult challenges. Several animals were too sick to move easily, while others panicked at their presence. Juno's devices sometimes malfunctioned, requiring immediate repair, and Tico's observations sometimes conflicted with Myra's telepathic insights. Each disagreement tested their patience and teamwork. But Ethan stayed calm, guiding the children through problem-solving techniques, emphasizing communication, and reminding them to trust each other. By late afternoon, the breakthrough came. Juno's device successfully neutralized airborne pathogens in a controlled area, allowing Ethan to treat infected animals more effectively. Myra's telepathy provided insights into which creatures were most vulnerable, while Tico and Rick guided them safely through the environment. Lanny continued to maintain emotional stability, and Lily contributed quietly but effectively, assisting where needed. Finally, after hours of work, they managed to stabilize the sick animals, and the immediate threat began to recede. Ethan allowed himself a deep breath, realizing the full significance of what they had achieved. This was no ordinary veterinary work. This was teamwork, strategy, and cooperation on a scale he had never experienced. The children had risen to the occasion, using their talents in ways that complemented his own skills. When they returned home that evening, exhausted but exhilarated, Ethan reflected on the day. He had seen courage, intelligence, and empathy displayed by the children in ways that left him in awe. He realized that being a father figure to them was not just about guidance or discipline. It was about nurturing potential, encouraging cooperation, and fostering a sense of responsibility. The children had trusted him, relied on him, and succeeded under his leadership. That night, as they gathered in the living room to rest, Ethan noticed the subtle ways the children interacted with him. Tico sat close, leaning against his shoulder, her eyes glowing faintly. Myra floated nearby, projecting warmth and calm. Juno tinkered quietly with a small device but glanced up at Ethan frequently, seeking approval. Lanny held Lily's hand, smiling at Ethan, while Rick leaned against the wall, alert but content. Nyla and Sierra watched quietly from the corner, their expressions unreadable but approving. They had witnessed the full extent of Ethan's ability to manage the family, and they knew the perfect match file had been correct. He was exactly the person they had hoped to find, capable of guiding, inspiring, and protecting their children while adapting to the unique challenges of a blended human-alien household. Ethan realized something important. This family was not just about care or teaching, it was about mutual growth. The children were learning from him, but he was learning from them as well. Their abilities, their perspectives, and their courage were opening new ways of thinking, teaching him lessons he had never encountered before. He had believed his life was stable and meaningful, but now he understood that the true meaning of life was not found in quiet routines. It was found in shared experiences, challenges, and triumphs. Over the following days, life continued in this extraordinary rhythm. They treated injured animals, explored parts of the colony few humans had visited, and solved problems that seemed impossible at first. Ethan marveled at the ingenuity of the children and the calm, guiding presence of Nyla and Sierra. He realized that this family was teaching him patience, resilience, and leadership in ways no other experience had. One evening, as they sat under the twin moons of the colony, watching bioluminescent insects drift through the air, Lily whispered to him, "Dad, I think we're a really good team." Ethan smiled, squeezing her hand. "Yes, we are," he said softly. "And I'm proud of every one of you." Tico's camouflage shimmered faintly as she peeked from behind a nearby rock. "We couldn't have done it without you," she said. Myra's telepathy projected a quiet wave of approval, and Juno grinned. "Next time maybe we can solve an even bigger problem," he said. Lanny nodded calmly, while Rick gave a small, approving grunt. Ethan realized then that he had found something he had long thought impossible. A family that challenged him, inspired him, and filled his life with meaning. It was more than love or duty. It was shared purpose, mutual respect, and the joy of overcoming challenges together. As the night deepened and the children settled down to sleep, Ethan allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. His life had changed completely in just a few short weeks. From a quiet, predictable existence, he had been thrust into a world of wonder, responsibility, and adventure. And yet, he felt more alive than ever. He looked at the sleeping children, Lily snuggled against him, and the faint glow of Nyla and Sierra's presence nearby. Ethan knew that life with this extraordinary family would not always be easy. There would be mistakes, conflicts, and new challenges he could not yet foresee. But he also knew that together they could face anything. For the first time in a long time, Ethan Kane felt a sense of excitement, purpose, and belonging that he had never imagined. This family, with all its chaos, intelligence, and love, had given him a gift far greater than he had expected, a reason to face the unknown with courage, patience, and hope. And as he closed his eyes, listening to the soft breathing of 5 extraordinary children and the quiet hum of the colony at night, Ethan realized that this was only the beginning. There would be trials ahead, moments of doubt, and new adventures that would test them all. But he was ready. Together, they would overcome anything, and in the process, they would discover the true power of family, cooperation, and the unyielding strength of the human heart. The weeks following the wildlife crisis had been a whirlwind of activity, bonding, and discovery. Ethan Kane had never imagined that his life would become so full of purpose, laughter, and challenges. The children had adapted to their new home and routines remarkably well, their unique abilities blossoming under the guidance of Ethan, Nyla, and Sierra. But he knew that the true test of their family would come not from small daily tasks, but from the unpredictable challenges of the universe itself. One morning, as sunlight filtered through the large windows of their home, Lily ran into Ethan's study with a stack of hollow scrolls. "Dad, look at this!" she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Ethan looked up from his notes and saw reports of an approaching meteor storm threatening the colony's outskirts. While the colony's defenses were strong, the storm carried not only debris but the potential to destabilize nearby habitats, endangering wildlife and humans alike. Ethan felt a familiar surge of determination. He had learned that with the children, Nyla and Sierra, he could face challenges he would have once thought impossible. He quickly gathered everyone for a briefing. "The meteor storm is approaching," he explained, projecting a holographic map. "We need to ensure that the habitats, the animals, and our family are all safe. Everyone has a role to play." Tico's camouflage shimmered as she scanned the map. "We should start by securing the smaller habitats." "I can scout the area and find potential weak points," she suggested. Myra's sensors flickered. "I can detect stress in animals and warn us where intervention is needed first," she offered. Juno's mind raced with possibilities. "I can design temporary protective barriers. They'll be fast to deploy and strong enough to withstand most debris," he said confidently. Lanny nodded calmly, her empathy projecting reassurance to the group. "We'll need to stay organized. Panic will make everything worse." Rick, standing firmly beside them, added, "I'll make sure everyone stays safe and moves efficiently. We can't afford mistakes." Even Lily contributed, pointing out locations where younger animals or humans might need extra help. Ethan smiled at her courage. He realized how much she had grown in these few weeks, confident, responsible, and ready to act when needed. They moved quickly. Tico led the scouting teams, her camouflage allowing her to move unseen and relay crucial information. Myra stayed close to Ethan, projecting calm and sensing stress points among both animals and humans. Juno and Lily constructed barriers from materials they found around the colony, while Lanny coordinated their movements and ensured everyone remained focused. Rick patrolled the perimeter, alert to any signs of danger. As the storm approached, the sky darkened with swirling debris. The wind howled and the colony trembled under the first impacts. Ethan felt a familiar adrenaline surge. This was no ordinary challenge. It required every ounce of their intelligence, skill, and courage. He watched as the children executed their roles flawlessly. Tico identified weak points and guided the team to reinforce them. Myra warned Ethan of areas where animals were becoming distressed. Juno's barriers held strong, absorbing the brunt of minor meteor impacts. Lanny's calm energy kept everyone focused, and Rick's vigilance ensured no one strayed into danger. Ethan realized in that moment that this was more than just a storm. It was a test of their family's unity. The perfect match file had not only predicted compatibility, it had identified a team capable of handling extraordinary circumstances. He felt a surge of pride. These children, so different from any humans he had ever known, had become his partners, his allies, and his family. Hours passed, the storm battering the colony, but the family worked tirelessly. Even as debris tore through some structures, they adapted, repaired, and protected the habitats. Ethan treated animals injured during minor impacts while coordinating efforts to move others to safer locations. He marveled at how quickly the children learned, adjusted, and supported each other. Every skill they possessed, every ability, and every ounce of courage contributed to their collective success. By late afternoon, the storm began to subside. The sky cleared gradually, leaving behind a landscape that bore the marks of struggle, but also the triumph of preparation and teamwork. Ethan looked around at the children and the two Felinara women, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. They had faced a true crisis together and had emerged stronger. Nyla stepped forward, her glowing eyes reflecting pride. "You have done more than we could have imagined, Ethan. Your leadership, patience, and courage have guided our family through a challenge that few could survive intact." Sierra nodded, her expression calm but full of approval. "The children have flourished under your guidance. You have not only cared for them, you have inspired them." Ethan felt a warm rush of emotion. "It's been a team effort. I couldn't have done it without any of you," he said sincerely, glancing at the children. Tico, blinking as her camouflage faded, added, "We trust you, Dad. You always know what to do, even when things seem impossible." Myra's small hand reached for his, her telepathic presence radiating calm and appreciation. "We've learned so much from you," she said softly. Juno grinned. "Next time we'll tackle something even harder," Lanny smiled gently. "As long as we work together, we can face anything." Rick, still vigilant, gave a small nod. "Agreed, and we'll always protect each other." Ethan looked at them all, a profound sense of belonging filling his heart. The storm had tested their courage, skill, and unity, and they had succeeded because they trusted each other. He realized that this was the essence of family, not perfection, but cooperation, respect, and shared purpose. The days following the storm were quieter but no less meaningful. They repaired minor damage to the habitats, treated animals recovering from injuries, and reinforced the colony against future storms. Ethan noticed subtle changes in the children. They had become more confident, more self-assured, and more aware of their abilities and responsibilities. Even Lily had grown into her role, assisting, guiding, and learning from the unique challenges of this extraordinary household. Ethan also reflected on his own growth. The past weeks had transformed him. He had learned patience beyond what he thought possible, strategic thinking in high-pressure situations, and the profound joy that comes from nurturing and guiding a family. His life, once quiet and predictable, now overflowed with purpose, energy, and meaning. One evening, after a long day of repairs and preparation, Ethan gathered the children and the two Felinara women in the living room. He looked at each of them, seeing not just their abilities but their personalities, their hearts, and the trust they placed in him. "I want you all to know," he began, "how proud I am of each of you. We faced challenges that could have been overwhelming, but together we succeeded. We are more than a family, we are a team, and I wouldn't trade this life for anything." The children beamed at him, their expressions reflecting pride, joy, and a deep sense of belonging. Nyla and Sierra nodded, acknowledging the strength of the family they had found. As the night settled, Ethan sat quietly, reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. He thought about the lonely days before the arrival of Nyla, Sierra, and the children, days filled with quiet routines and the absence of connection. He realized that he had not been living, he had been merely existing. Now every day was filled with purpose, learning, laughter, and love. The soft hum of Felinara technology, the gentle breathing of the children, and Lily's quiet murmurs as she drifted to sleep filled the house with warmth. Ethan felt a profound sense of peace. This family, so different from what he had imagined in the past, had given him something he could never have predicted: belonging, purpose, and a future filled with endless possibilities. Over the following weeks, life continued to flourish. The children thrived under Ethan's guidance and the Felinara women's support. Tico's scouting skills improved dramatically, Myra's telepathy became more refined, Juno's inventions grew increasingly sophisticated, Lanny's empathy strengthened the group's cohesion, and Rick's vigilance ensured safety and harmony. Lily's human perspective added creativity, joy, and balance to their endeavors. Ethan began to see the world through their eyes. He appreciated the small details in nature, the subtle emotions of creatures, and the complexity of their abilities. Every challenge became an opportunity to grow, learn, and connect. Even ordinary tasks became meaningful adventures, whether it was preparing meals, exploring the forest, or repairing habitats. One evening, as the family gathered under the twin moons once more, Ethan looked around at them all. He saw courage, intelligence, empathy, and creativity in every face. He realized that the universe had brought them together not by accident, but with purpose. The perfect match file had been right. He was meant to lead, guide, and grow with this extraordinary family. He smiled, feeling the deep warmth of love and connection. "We have faced storms, solved problems, and learned from each other," he said softly. "And I know that whatever challenges come next, we will face them together. We are a family, strong, united, and ready for anything." As the night deepened, Ethan felt a sense of completion and anticipation all at once. This was not the end of their journey. It was the beginning of countless adventures, discoveries, and shared experiences. He knew that life would continue to challenge them, but he also knew that they had each other, and that made every challenge surmountable. For the first time in years, Ethan Kane felt truly alive. He had found a family that challenged him, inspired him, and gave his life meaning beyond anything he had ever imagined. Together, they would explore the universe, face the unknown, and grow stronger with each passing day. And as he watched the children drift to sleep, the Felinara women by their sides and Lily resting peacefully, Ethan understood something profound. The universe had given him not just a family, but a life filled with purpose, adventure, and the kind of love that transcended species, abilities, and expectation. He closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of home, the strength of family, and the promise of countless tomorrows. This was the life he had been waiting for, unpredictable, extraordinary, and entirely, wonderfully his own.